Serkan, first of all, just to you, just put into context, if you can, the historical significance of what's happened today.
I think the move, in my opinion, is largely seen and driven by a desire to correct for the kind of disenfranchisement of the religious, pious, conservative class here in Turkey. And I think that you'd have to go back into the 1920s and 30s for that. You'd have to see the style or type of secularism that was in play at the time, and you'd have to see what happened to those class of people. And I think that they're trying to correct for it now and having the Hagia Sophia back to the Muslim community. I see the Hagia Sophia as the Hagia Sophia still, but with the addition of Muslim worship. I don't think that there is any sort of apocalyptic kind of end that's going to come about from this move. But yes, I think that it's rather easy to look back in history and sort of blame the period of the time, but we have to understand that secularism then was quite different than it is now. And maybe the only type of secularism that is being pushed back is the kind of type that disenfranchised the religious class. So secularism is not over, in my opinion, by any stretch of the imagination.
And Serkan, just picking up on some of that international reaction, do you think there's a sense of sort of historical naivete by certain portions of the international community not quite understanding the significance of this building that was, of course, a mosque for 500 years?
Well, it can work both ways. I think from the outside you may not know the inside very well, and from the inside you may not know what the outside reactions are very well. I don't think, again, it's very sort of, or it needs to be taken to the kind of level that it has been. I think there's been this idea that somehow plurality is going to suffer, or humanity is going to suffer, or it's going to be the end of Christianity, or Islam is going to be on the rise here in Turkey without any kind of stop. I just don't think life works like that. I mean, this building and the function of this building does not kind of have this kind of causal power over all of these isms and ologies and the way people think and the ideologies that people have. It doesn't make quite much sense. I understand the symbology of it, of course, and I have personally some Greek friends who are, not very happy, and I understand the merits of having it as a museum, but think about what the Armenian Patriarch said, for example. He said that we could have this as a space of joint worship for Christians and Muslims. I don't think there's an example of that living with us today, in living memory. I also think that the Greek Patriarch here in Istanbul said that if it was going to be open to worship, it should only be worship to Christian worship. So we had these kind of very almost incommensurable views to deal with, and it's quite hard really to strike a balance.
Political points, of course, the majority of people in Turkey seem to have wanted this to revert back to being a mosque, but there is a political element to this, of course. How do you view how what has happened today will be viewed going forward?
I mean, there are going to be people who view this in entirely sort of cynical and utilitarian terms, and you'll hear them say it's just for votes. Or just for an upcoming election, or just because he had to, or he wants to kind of, as President Erdogan, wants to start a culture war. I just don't think that holds water. I don't see that. I mean, it's right to be aware of some of the dangers that could possibly happen in the future, but I don't think the Turkish people are like that. We are a secular democracy here. We don't want any of that kind of extremity either side of the debate. We don't want there to be cutthroat secularism in this country that denies religious freedom. At the same time, we don't want religious freedom to be completely and utterly sort of blunted. And there's a balance to be had between faith and religion, secularism and faith, and so on and so forth. And it's about striking that balance. But I don't think some of the narratives help. I think some of the doomsday narratives make things worse and are quite counterproductive. People are very sensitive about any event that happens. And so they then extrapolate and crystal ball gaze into some sort of doomsday scenario in the future, which is unhelpful, unfortunately.
It certainly is.